Hi guys, so Shannara Chronicles has just been cancelled. This is going to be a quick video as to why I think, after watching season 2 on Netflix, it should be given another chance, or should be brought back, or a new studio should pick up the reins and try and give the potential Terry Brooks's series deserves. So after 2 seasons, Shannara Chronicles has been cancelled. Season 1 was at MTV, and season 2 was showed on Spike. The producers are actually shopping the show to different networks to see if anyone wants to pick it up. And I think someone should. I think maybe Netflix would do well. They haven't really got anything fantasy. They obviously don't show Game of Thrones. That's all Sky Atlantic and Now TV and HBO. They could give it a bit more of a higher budget than the other networks could, and maybe a bit more attention, then it would work. Netflix reaches a wider audience than Spike and MTV does. Most places at least do have a connection to Netflix and would enable it to have a wider audience. I think what the show does have, even though it is goofy, and that's the downfalls of it, it is goofy, the acting at times is terrible, the writing is sometimes questionable, but it does have charm and the story is there. It's a decent enough story and the characters are likeable enough, even though, like I say, the goofy and the writing and acting is sometimes poor. But there's something there, there's something charming about it, and it is a compelling enough tale to bring you along. So they have taken a lot of the story from Terry Brooks' series. It does take a lot of the same story beats, a lot of the same lines, and it has a lot of the same characters. I think that's probably for the better. I think that's why there is the glimmer of hope with it. It's actually a decent TV show if you get past the goofiness and get past the slightly hammy acting. It is actually a decent show under all that. The only thing on telly at the moment that's fantasy is Game of Thrones. That only appeals to a certain demographic. You've got to be of a certain age and you've got to like that kind of grit, even though it is very successful. But it kind of marginalises the younger audience, teens maybe. And I think that's where Shannara Chronicles had found its niche and why originally they thought it would be a good thing to produce, and that's why I still think it is. The thing with Shannara Chronicles, especially in season 2, it did try and go a lot darker, and I think it didn't really know its identity. It didn't really know which way it wanted to go. It didn't know whether it wanted to be a teen show set in the fantasy series with love triangles and good-looking actors, boy and girl, or if it wanted to be, especially in season 2, it wanted to be a dark, mature, sometimes obscenely graphical TV show. There's a moment where the main character gets something stuck into his neck and the flesh gets pulled apart, and there's a moment where someone gets choked out by a mask and with blood pouring from its face. Like, try not to be spoilery, but that's the kind of thing it's doing while mixed into a teen drama. I think if it went one way, it could try and, it's never going to beat Game of Thrones, but it could try and fill that void that is left in the meantime, or that is going to be left when it's gone before its sequels and spin-offs come out. I think if it did that, that's fine, do that. Or instead you could run simultaneously Game of Thrones and not try and compete and be a teen drama set into a fantasy universe. Because we all know Gossip Girl, Pretty Little Liars, 90210, things like that, they do have a massive audience. So why not open it up to the fantasy genre? And then we could get a new lot of fantasy fans there from people who would normally not watch that kind of show or then therefore read that kind of books. I think there is a niche for it. It just needs to explore that niche as opposed to trying to be something else. Yeah, that's my take. Personally, I really like it. It is goofy, but it's, like I said, there's not that much for me to watch as a fantasy fan. So yeah, I'd watch it. I do watch it. I'd recommend it with a little bit of a pinch of salt. But it is a decent show. I think if you have nothing else to watch the first 2 seasons, and then for them, the producers and other networks will see that there is a demand out there, and people do actually like the show. And season 3 will eventually get picked up and will come out for the fans that are there. Okay, that was just my take on the cancellation of Shannara Chronicles and the chances that it's going to get picked up. And I think if you give it a try, if you look past the hamminess and you look past the poor acting and some of the slightly questionable graphics and special effects, even though they are decent for a TV show, especially one with a lower end of a budget than, say, Game of Thrones, then I think you'd actually see a show that you'd actually quite enjoy, especially for fantasy fans, because there's not much out there for us fantasy fans.